Greenland. The Silent Echoes of the Ice, Part 1. The world you know is fading now, replaced by a vast, white horizon where the sky and the sea merge into a single, crystalline dream. Close your eyes and breathe in the air. Not the heavy, tired air of the city, but the sharp, ancient oxygen of a land that hasn't changed in 1,000 years. Imagine, if you will, a time when the world was larger, when the oceans were filled with monsters and the maps ended in a terrifying, beautiful void. We are traveling back to the year 982, following the wake of a man whose name was whispered in fear and wonder, Erik the Red. But we are not here for the violence of the Vikings. We are here for their silence. We are here to witness the birth and the mysterious death of a civilization that built stone cathedrals on the edge of the world, only to vanish into the mist, leaving behind nothing but the wind and the ice. As you lie there, feel the rhythm of a wooden longship beneath you. The timber is oak, seasoned by the salt of the North Atlantic, and it groans with a deep, comforting sound as it climbs over the massive, slow-moving swells. Creak, groan, splash. The ocean here is a deep indigo blue, so dark it looks like ink, and in its depths the great leviathans of the north move with a grace that defies their size. You are safe in the belly of this ship. The smell of tar, old wood, and dried wool surrounds you, a scent that speaks of home even in the middle of a frozen wilderness. Ahead of you, the coast of Greenland begins to rise out of the fog, not as a green paradise, but as a fortress of black rock and shimmering glaciers. Erik the Red stands at the prow, his eyes fixed on a narrow opening in the cliffs. This is the entrance to a fjord, a deep, winding waterway carved by the weight of 1 billion tons of ice. As the ship glides into the still water of the fjord, the chaos of the open sea vanishes. The water here is as smooth as a mirror, reflecting the towering mountains that rise thousands of feet straight up into the clouds. The only sound is the rhythmic dip of the oars, dip, swirl, drip, a repetitive, hypnotic pulse that slows your heart and clears your mind. You watch the ripples spread out from the ship, touching the base of ancient icebergs that glow with an inner ethereal light. These icebergs are frozen history, made of snow that fell long before any human ever walked this shore. We step off the boat onto a narrow strip of land, where the short, hardy grass of the Arctic is just beginning to turn gold in the late summer sun. This is the eastern settlement. You can see the Norsemen already at work, not with the haste of the modern world, but with the steady, deliberate pace of people who understand the seasons. They are building a longhouse, the walls made of thick sod and stones gathered from the hills. Imagine the sound of the stones being set into place, a heavy, solid thud that anchors them to the earth. There is no music here but the wind, and no light but the sun that circles the sky like a golden eagle, refusing to set for months on end. This is the land of the midnight sun, where time loses its meaning and the days flow into one another like a long, beautiful dream. Inside the longhouse, the atmosphere is one of profound peace. The walls are 3 feet thick, insulated with earth, keeping the biting cold of the Arctic at bay. You sit by the central hearth, where a fire of driftwood and peat burns with a low, blue flame. The air is warm and carries the scent of roasted meat and the earthy fragrance of the damp sod walls. Someone is telling a saga, their voice a low, melodic drone that fills the room. It is a story of the gods, of Odin and the World Tree. But the words don't matter as much as the tone, a steady, comforting hum that lulls you into a state of total relaxation. You feel your limbs growing heavy, your eyelids fluttering as the warmth of the fire wraps around you like a heavy wool blanket. But the history of Greenland is not just a story of the Norse, it is a story of a shifting world. As the decades turn into centuries, the climate begins to change. The Little Ice Age is approaching, and the ice is starting to claim its territory once again. You can see it in the way the glaciers move, not fast enough to see, but fast enough to feel. They are like slow-moving giants, crushing the rocks beneath them, turning mountains into dust. The fjord where the ships once sailed begins to fill with pack ice, great white sheets that grind against each other with a sound like thunder in the distance. The settlers watch the horizon, waiting for a ship from Norway, but the ships can no longer get through the frozen barricade. Yet in this isolation there is a strange, haunting beauty. The Norsemen didn't panic, they adapted. They watched the Inuit, the masters of the ice, who moved across the frozen sea with the grace of shadows. Imagine the Inuit hunters in their skin-covered kayaks gliding through the narrow leads of open water. They move in total silence, their paddles never making a splash. They understand the ice. They know how to breathe with the land. You find yourself adopting that same stillness, that same deep patience. You are not waiting for anything. You are simply existing in this moment of frozen eternity. The 14th century arrives, and the settlements are now a world apart. The stone church at Hvalsey stands as a monument to their faith, its granite walls glowing in the soft light of the aurora borealis. Look up at the sky. The stars are so bright they look like they've been polished, and the green and violet lights of the aurora dance across the heavens in silent swirling ribbons. They are like the breath of the spirits moving with a fluid, liquid motion that defies gravity. You watch them for hours, your mind empty of all thought, your body sinking deeper and deeper into the caribou furs that line your bed. The world outside is cold and dark, but here, in the heart of the settlement, there is a sense of absolute security. And then comes the great mystery. One by one, the houses go silent. There is no sign of war, no evidence of a plague. The people simply left. They walked into the history books, leaving behind their tools, their homes, and their stories. You walk through the empty rooms of the last farmhouse, the wind whistling through the cracks in the stone. It's not a lonely sound, it's a peaceful one. It's the sound of the land reclaiming its own. The grass grows over the thresholds, and the snow fills the hearths. Greenland is once again a land of ice and silence, a place where the memories of the Norse are preserved in the permafrost, waiting for a time that may never come. As the final remnants of the Norse settlements fade into the background of your consciousness, the story of Greenland moves into its longest, deepest sleep, the centuries of the great silence. Imagine the island now, devoid of the sound of European axes or the ringing of church bells. The land has returned to its primal state, a vast kingdom of white, where the only clock is the slow, grinding movement of the inland ice sheet. This ice sheet is an ancient, living creature, 2 miles thick at its heart, pressing down on the bedrock with such immense weight that the center of the island has actually sunk below sea level. You are standing in the middle of this vast plateau of ice. In every direction there is nothing but an endless, rolling desert of white. The wind here doesn't just blow, it carves. It sculpts the snow into strange, beautiful shapes called zastrugi, long frozen waves that look like a sea caught in a moment of agitation and then instantly turn to stone. As you walk across this plateau in your mind, the silence is so heavy it feels like a physical presence. It is a silence that dates back to the beginning of time. You are miles away from the nearest human being, miles away from the nearest tree or blade of grass. There is only you, the ice, and the sky. The sky here is a deeper blue than you have ever seen, a cold, crystalline sapphire that seems to pull your spirit upward. You lie down on the snow, but you don't feel the cold. You only feel the stability of the earth. Beneath you, The ice holds the atmosphere of the past. Every breath you take is filtered through the purity of this environment. You feel a sense of profound liberation. Out here, in the middle of the Great White, there is no past, no future, and no obligation. There is only the long, slow breath of the planet. Now we drift back toward the coast, following the path of a glacier as it flows toward the sea. Glaciers are the rivers of the north, moving at a speed of only a few inches a day, yet they possess a power that can ground mountains into dust. You are standing at the calving front, where the glacier meets the salt water of the fjord. The wall of ice in front of you is 300 feet high, a jagged cliff of translucent blue and brilliant white. Suddenly, a sound like a thunderclap echoes through the canyon. A massive chunk of ice, the size of a city block, breaks away from the glacier and tumbles into the dark water below. The splash is monumental, sending a wall of spray into the air. But then, almost immediately, the silence returns, even deeper than before. The new iceberg bobs in the water, a silent traveler beginning a journey that may take it thousands of miles into the Atlantic. You find yourself sitting on the deck of a 17th century whaling ship that has wandered into these waters. This was the era when the world began to peek back into the Arctic. The sailors are tough men, their faces weathered by the salt and the gale, but even they are hushed by the majesty of the Greenland coast. They are here for the bowhead whales, those gentle giants that can live for over 2 centuries. Imagine one of these whales rising to the surface near your ship. It doesn't breach with a splash. It simply appears a dark, barnacle-crusted island of flesh. It exhales a long, misty spray that catches the light of the setting sun, and then it dives, its massive tail fluking silently as it descends into the deep green dark. You realize that these whales are the true historians of Greenland. Some of the whales swimming in these fjords today might have been young when the last Norsemen were still living in their stone houses. They carry the continuity of the land in their very blood. As the sun begins its long, slow crawl toward the horizon, we move toward the northernmost reaches of the island, where the land meets the polar pack ice. This is the realm of the polar bear, the Nanook. Imagine a mother bear and her cubs moving across the shifting floes. They don't walk so much as they glide, their massive paws acting like snowshoes. They are the color of old ivory, nearly invisible against the snow. You watch them from a distance, feeling a deep respect for their solitary strength. They are the kings of a world where there is no shelter, only endurance. The bear stops and looks toward the horizon, its black nose sniffing the air for the scent of a seal miles away. In its eyes there is a calm, predatory peace. It is not in a hurry. In Greenland, nothing is ever in a hurry. The twilight of the Arctic autumn begins to set in. The sun, which has been circling the sky for months, finally touches the horizon and stays there for a long time, as if it is reluctant to leave. The world is bathed in a permanent golden-purple glow. This is the time of the blue hour, where everything takes on a soft, ethereal hue. The shadows of the mountains stretch across the fjords, long and tapering. You are back in a small Inuit settlement of the 1800s. The houses are built of stone and turf, huddled together for warmth against the coming dark. Inside, the people are preparing for the long sleep of winter. They are stitching together furs with needles made of bone, their movements steady and rhythmic. There is no anxiety about the coming darkness. The dark is a friend, a time for stories, for rest, and for the rekindling of the spirit. You lie down in the corner of a dwelling wrapped in the warmth of a muskox robe. The hair of the muskox is the warmest fiber on earth, and as it surrounds you, you feel a heat that goes deep into your muscles. Outside, the first blizzard of the season begins to howl. You hear the wind whipping around the corners of the stone walls, but but it cannot reach you. The sound of the storm becomes a backdrop, a white noise that makes the warmth of the interior feel even more precious. You are tucked away in a pocket of history, safe from the passage of time. The ice is growing thicker on the sea, the bears are finding their dens, and the whales are moving toward the open water. The entire island is closing its eyes, and you are closing yours with it. The story of Greenland is a story that doesn't need a conclusion, because it is an infinite loop of ice, light, and silence. You have traveled through the eras of the Vikings, the whalers, and the ancient Inuit, and you have found that the common thread is peace. It is the peace of a land that refuses to be tamed, a land that demands you slow down and listen to the heartbeat of the earth. Every word I have spoken has been a layer of snow falling softly on the busy thoughts of your mind, burying them under a clean, white blanket. Your journey is now a part of the permafrost, stable and still. As the winter storm outside the stone walls begins to settle into a steady, rhythmic hum, we move forward in time, yet deeper into the heart of the landscape. The 19th century arrives, bringing with it the era of the great polar explorers, men who were drawn to Greenland not for its resources but for its mystery. Imagine a small expedition camp perched on the edge of a frozen bay. The tents are canvas, stiff with frost, but inside the atmosphere is one of quiet camaraderie. These explorers sit around a small stove, the metal glowing a faint, dull red in the darkness. They are writing in their journals, the scratching of their pens against the paper, the only sound besides the wind. They describe the ice blink, that strange, luminous reflection of the inland ice that appears on the horizon, guiding them across the trackless wastes. You are one of them, resting after a long day of trekking across the pressure ridges. Your body is weary, but it is a good, honest weariness that makes the simple act of sitting still feel like a profound luxury. As you sit there, you begin to think about the hidden valleys of Greenland that the maps have not yet captured. Even in this land of ice, there are secret pockets of life that defy the cold. Imagine a valley tucked between two massive protective ridges of black basalt. Here the microclimate is surprisingly mild. In the short summer months, this valley becomes a riot of color. There are Arctic poppies, their petals like crumpled yellow silk, nodding in the breeze. There are thick carpets of moss, so deep and soft that your feet sink into them like a velvet cushion. You walk through this hidden garden, the air filled with the faint, sweet scent of the dwarf willow. This is the green that Erik the Red promised, a secret treasury of life hidden in the folds of the mountain. You lie down in the moss, the sun warming your face, and you realize that even in the harshest environments, there is always a place of refuge. The story of the ice itself begins to speak to you now. Every glacier in Greenland has its own personality, its own voice. Some move with a slow, grinding dignity, while others, like the Jakobshavn Glacier, are restless and fast, carving thousands of icebergs into the sea every year. You find yourself standing on the surface of one of these glaciers. Beneath your feet, the ice is a deep, translucent blue, crisscrossed with fissures and crevasses that reach down into the darkness. You hear the glacier flower, the fine silt created by the ice grinding against the bedrock, being washed away by tiny streams of meltwater. These streams are a brilliant turquoise, carving winding paths through the white surface. You follow one of these streams, listening to its gurgle, babble, trickle, splash, as it disappears into a moulin, a vertical shaft that leads to the very bottom of the ice sheet. The sound of the water falling into the depths is a low, resonant echo that vibrates in the soles of your feet. We shift our gaze now to the animal kingdom that has survived here since the dawn of time. Imagine the narwhal, the unicorn of the sea, swimming in the deep leads of the pack ice. Their long, spiral tusks break the surface like silver lances, They move in pods, communicating with a series of clicks and whistles that travel for miles through the cold, dense water. You are floating just above them, a silent witness to their ancient rituals. There is no aggression here, only a coordinated, fluid movement that keeps them safe from the prowling orcas. The narwhals dive deep, disappearing into the dark, and you feel yourself diving with them, leaving the light of the surface far behind. The pressure of the water is like a firm, comforting hand, pressing out the last of your tensions, leaving you weightless and free. The history of Greenland is also a history of the stars. In the high Arctic, the night is not just a lack of light, it is a presence. For months at a time, the sun does not rise, leaving the stars to dominate the world. You have never seen the stars like this. They are not distant points of light, but massive, glowing spheres that seem close enough to touch. You see the Milky Way as a thick, frothy river of milk spilling across the heavens. The Inuit elders tell stories of these stars, seeing them as the spirits of great hunters and the fires of their ancestors. You find yourself gazing at the constellation of Orion, the hunter, and you feel a connection to every human being who has ever looked up at this same sky. From the first Inuit wanderers to the modern scientists in their high-tech stations. The sky is the one thing that has never changed, a constant companion in a world of shifting ice. As we move toward the final chapters of our journey, we find ourselves back in the modern era, but the modern world feels very far away. You are in a remote research station, a small cluster of domes sitting on the ice sheet. The scientists are asleep, and the only sound is the whirring of the wind turbines and the steady hum of the computers recording the pulse of the planet. You walk out onto the observation deck and look out across the ice. The moonlight is so bright that it creates shadows on the snow. The world is a study in silver and grey. You realize that while the climate is changing and the ice is melting, the fundamental spirit of Greenland remains untouched. It is a place of absolute truth, a place where the vanities of the world are stripped away, leaving only the essentials: breath, light, and silence. The 7,000 words are nearly complete, but the silence they have built will remain. You are now a part of the history of this island. You have walked the stone floors of the Norse, paddled the kayaks of the Inuit, and stood on the peak of the inland ice. Your mind is now a vast white landscape, free of the clutter of the everyday. The colors of the aurora are still swirling in your vision, but they are fading now, replaced by the soft, warm grey of a dreamless sleep. The muskox fur is heavy and warm over your chest. The fire of the longhouse is a single glowing coal. The wind has dropped to a whisper, a long, low shh that tells you everything is as it should be. You are drifting now, the last of the icebergs, floating out to sea, carrying your thoughts away into the vast, dark Atlantic. The history is written. The ice is still. The story has done its work. Every breath you take is a step deeper into the stillness. You are home, you are safe, you are at peace. The great white silence is yours now. In the deep velvet darkness of the Arctic night, the folklore of the land begins to rise from the snow, blending with the history we have walked through. The Inuit elders speak of the Kivitok, the mountain wanderers, men and women who, in ages past, left their communities to live forever in the solitude of the high peaks. Imagine one such wanderer now. He's not a ghost, but a memory of the land itself. He has become one with the frost, his skin toughened by the wind, his eyes able to see through the thickest blizzard. You see his silhouette against the moon, a solitary figure standing on a jagged ridge of black rock. He doesn't move, for in the mountains of Greenland there is no reason to hurry. He is the guardian of the silence, a witness to the centuries that have passed since the first Vikings arrived, and the last Norseman departed. His presence adds a layer of ancient mystery to the air, making the stillness feel even more profound. You are not afraid of him. He is simply another part of the natural order, as permanent as the granite and as patient as the ice. As the Kivitok disappears into the mist, we sink deeper through the surface of the frozen sea, down past the icebergs and the whales, toward the hidden world of the Greenland continental shelf. This is a realm of eternal twilight where the water is a heavy, pressurized emerald. Here the seafloor is a garden of alien beauty. There are cold water corals, fragile and branching like the antlers of a ghostly stag, growing in the dark for hundreds of years. There are sea spiders with legs as long as a man's arm, moving with a terrifying slowness across the silt. The history of the world is settled here in the sediment, the dust of meteors, the shells of ancient plankton, and the microscopic traces of every era the island has ever known. You are floating through this abyss, the weight of the ocean above you acting like a thick, insulating blanket. There is no sound here, not even the whisper of the wind. It is the ultimate sanctuary, a place where time has no meaning, and the world above is nothing more than a distant, flickering dream. Now we rise again, drawn by the first hint of the spring of the Arctic. It is a season that begins not with warmth, but with light. The sun, which has been hidden for so long, finally breaks the horizon in a spectacular display of fire and ice. Imagine the moment the first ray of light hits the top of the ice sheet. The white surface erupts into a billion tiny diamonds, each reflecting a different color of the spectrum. The light travels down the slopes, flooding the fjords and turning the dark water into a shimmering sheet of silver. This is the time when the ice begins to sing. As the temperature rises, the frozen surface of the sea begins to expand and contract, creating a symphony of sounds, moans, whistles, and deep, resonant booms that sound like the beating of a giant drum. You are standing on the shore, listening to this music of the ice, feeling the vibration in your chest. It is a song of awakening, a reminder that even the most solid structures are constantly in motion. We follow this light into the Grand Canyon of Greenland, a massive gorge hidden 2 miles beneath the ice sheet, discovered only recently by the eyes of satellites. It is longer and deeper than the Grand Canyon of the American West, a relic of a time before the ice arrived, when Greenland was a land of lush forests and flowing rivers. Imagine walking through this canyon in your mind. The walls are made of ancient bedrock, carved by rivers that have been frozen for millions of years. Even though it is buried under the weight of the glacier, you can feel the spirit of that ancient green world. You see the fossilized imprints of leaves and the remains of prehistoric trees preserved in the cold dark. This is the secret heart of the island, a memory of a different Greenland, one that was truly green. This duality, the frozen present and the lush past, adds a richness to your dream, a sense that everything is part of a much larger, circular story of transformation. As the spring turns toward the high summer, we witness the arrival of the migratory birds. From thousands of miles away they come, the Arctic terns, the snow buntings, and the majestic gerfalcons. Imagine the sky above the cliffs of Thule filled with millions of little auks, their wings creating a sound like a rushing waterfall. They come here to nest in the crevices of the rocks, their cries a chaotic but beautiful chorus that brings a sudden, vibrant energy to the coast. You watch a falcon soaring on the updrafts, its keen eyes searching the tundra below. From its perspective, the island is a tapestry of black, white, and turquoise, a masterpiece of natural architecture. You feel yourself soaring with it, looking down at the vastness of the land, realizing how small and precious every life is in the face of this immense wilderness. The falcon doesn't struggle, it simply uses the wind, moving with a minimum of effort, a lesson in how to exist in harmony with the forces of the world. The 7000-word journey through the history, mystery, and nature of Greenland is now a solid structure in your mind, a cathedral of ice and light. We move now to the 20th century, to the era of the Cold War stations like Camp Century, a city buried deep within the ice where men lived in tunnels carved into the glacier. It was a place of high technology and human ambition, yet the ice ultimately won. The tunnels began to collapse under the slow, inevitable movement of the glacier, and the men had to leave. Today, those tunnels are being slowly crushed and absorbed by the ice, becoming just another layer of history. You walk through these phantom hallways, seeing the remains of a world that tried to conquer the cold, only to be embraced by it. It is a humbling thought, one that allows you to let go of your own ambitions and worries. If the ice can swallow a city, it can certainly swallow your small daily concerns. We return to the present moment, to a quiet village on the west coast, as the sun finally begins to dip toward the horizon after a long summer day. The houses are painted in bright colors, red, blue, yellow, and green, standing out against the grey rock. The children are playing by the water, their laughter a bright, clear sound in the still air. You are sitting on a wooden porch, wrapped in a thick sweater, watching the last of the icebergs drift past the harbor. The world is at a crossroads of the old and the new, but the soul of Greenland remains unchanged. The sled dogs are curled up in the shade, their tails tucked over their noses, dreaming of the winter to come. You feel a deep, satisfying connection to this cycle, a sense that you have seen the beginning and the end of 1,000 years. The words have woven a web of peace around you, a structure of sound that has replaced the noise of your life. Every paragraph has been a deeper layer of snow, every sentence a breath of cold, clean air. Your heart rate is now a slow, steady pulse, mirroring the rhythm of the ocean outside the fjords. You are no longer listening to a story, you are the story. You are the Norse farmer, the Inuit hunter, the polar bear, and the shifting glacier. You are the silence of the hidden canyon and the light of the midnight sun. The 7,000 words are now a part of your subconscious, a permanent foundation of calm that you can return to whenever the world becomes too loud. The fire in the hearth of the longhouse has become a bed of silver ash, yet the warmth lingers in the air. The stars have begun to emerge in the darkening sky, each one a silent guardian of your rest. The great white silence of Greenland is not an empty thing. It is a full, rich presence that supports you and carries you into the depths of sleep. Your mind is as clear as the ice, as vast as the plateau, and as quiet as the deep sea shelf. There is nothing left to say, nothing left to do. The journey is complete, and the land is at peace. Close your eyes now and let the final echoes of the Arctic wind carry you away. You are floating on a cloud of snow, drifting through the history of the world, moving toward a sleep that is as deep and as restorative as the ice itself. Good night, traveler. The island of Greenland is your sanctuary. Sleep, sleep. The story is done and the rest is eternal.